Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the FwooshCast. I know it's been a minute since the last one, but I am happy to announce that we have a first-time guest with us today, and I'm excited to bring in Juhn Lim from Jada Toys to the FwooshCast. Juhn, thank you so much for joining us and giving us your time. We're thrilled to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to go over updates for all our figures.
I know I know this is your first time on, even though we've kind of been talking about getting this set up for a
Yeah.
few months. The timing just happened to be right. But since it is your first time on the cast, if you don't mind us doing a quick intro, if you could just give us a little bit of detail about what your current position and responsibilities are at Jada, and maybe a little bit about the path that led you to your current role.
Yeah, so I work at Jada Toys. I've been there for a while. I started as a designer. Jada's known primarily for like their diecast and radio control vehicles. So I started in that category. Figures is something that was of interest for me personally as like a collector. So that's kind of like the category I've always been interested in. So we've kind of we maintain the vehicle side, but we kind of broke out into the figures using our diecast as like a segue,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what we're known for. So we had diecast figures for a while. Action figures is what my like ultimate goal was. It took a long time, but we finally broke out into it, and we got lucky in the beginning with some licenses, and now we're like on our way, and we're kind of creating and building that as a new category now. So yeah.
Well, that's awesome, and as you mentioned, you guys are well known and well regarded for the diecast toys category for sure. But
Yeah.
I think it's still safe to say that as far as action figures go, it's still relatively new, and you're building it up. But that said, you mentioned some of the licenses and things, and last year I'd say you really jumped in with both feet and made quite a splash with the Universal Monsters
Mhm.
license and the four-figure wave plus a couple of exclusives that started that. I'd like to start with that
Okay.
because we are just now wave two is starting to ship, which is exciting. And I'd kind of like to talk, start with what made Universal Monsters kind of the right place for you to really get started with the action figure side of what you guys are doing now.
Yeah, so like in general, like for like vehicle rights and licenses, it's relatively easy for us to get it because that's what we're known for.
Mhm.
But as far as like action figures, like if we want to like pitch for licenses, it's very difficult to get because there's already like big players in the market, and we don't really have any like credibility in that space. On the vehicle side, Fast and Furious is our biggest brand or like overall company wide.
Mhm.
So we have a really close relationship with Universal. So we've been like striking out with like licenses for action figures. So we started looking into partners we already have, and Universal has a big vault of properties that like are untapped. So it's like, oh, like Universal Monsters is like a classic line. Everyone knows the characters, and we already have a great relationship with them. So we kind of like talk to them, and they're like, all right, if you want to do it, you can. So that's kind of how we got our break as far as getting rights to do something.
Mhm.
So that kind of launched like that. So that's kind of like the story how we started and how we got our foot in the door, basically. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I have to say that out of that first wave of Universal Monsters, I think that um, the creature was probably my favorite. But in talking Universal Monsters overall, I was really excited for Series 2 because I think when I if I have to make a decision, which is really hard to do, I would probably have to go with the Wolfman as my favorite of all of the Universal monsters. And we have some photos here because mine literally hit my pile of loot today. But Wolfman and the Invisible Man are wave two, correct?
Yeah. So we launched Wave One like a year and a half ago. There was a big gap between Wave One and Wave Two because we weren't sure if it was going to work. We wanted to see like how it worked. And wave one did well enough for us to keep continuing. So for wave two, we did Wolfman and Invisible Man. Because the first wave was the first figures we've ever made, we've learned from that and improved. So that's why when you look at wave two, it's a much more refined, better version of what wave one is, as
Hmm.
far as like the articulation and sculpting. So this is kind of like an improvement over wave one. So yeah, we're like dialing in all the details and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing Wolfman at Comic-Con, and even though it was still early at that point, you could just tell by some of the detailing that was in there and the movement in the joints and stuff that he was already looking to be a step up. That's fun as far as an evolution goes for all your action figures. And as we've talked about, this is kind of a new thing for you guys. Is this just something that you take and you learn along the way as you increase the amount of figures that you are actually producing?
Yeah, because like in the beginning, like as far as like actual figures, like because I'm also a collector, so I'm familiar with action figures and the articulation.
Hmm.
But when you make it, we don't know like what we can afford. Like, like we can add everything we want, but is it going to be within our price range? So for wave one, we were kind of like cautious
Hmm.
and trying to like proceed like conservatively. But then after doing wave one, it's like, oh, actually, we can do this and that and still like keep it within price. So it's just like experience building that's improving our figures because we have like the know-how as far as how the action figure should be in our head. It's just a matter of merging that with experience to try to get the best out of whatever price we have. Yeah.
Cool. Well, Wolfman, while he is probably my favorite Universal monster overall, the Invisible Man joins him in this wave. And the one thing that I wanted to make sure that I definitely touched on with you is maybe talking about how it was conceived for the glove removing and the head unwrapping hands, because I think those are probably two of like the most inspired swappable pieces I think I've seen in action figures for a long time. So was that something that you just kind of came to, or how did that happen?
Kind of. So like our like format for our figures is to have the figure and have like at least an alternate head and then a second set of hands.
Hmm.
So we have some room to play around with like options there. And then we look at what like the abilities or like power set of the character is and try to incorporate that into the additional pieces or accessories. So for him, he has a very unique like ability. So we were trying to think how to show his invisibility using, like action figure, like, and yeah, I mean the hand coming off, I don't know, it just like came naturally just because like it's a cool effect and it's like realistic to execute because if the hand's connected to the other hand, it already looks like it's floating off.
Right.
So that's kind of like we tried it. We had the idea, and then when we tried it, it kind of looked, and we were tweaking like the angles of how the second hand is in relationship to this. Because if it's angled weird, it won't have that effect.
Right.
And then like the head unraveling also was kind of like, he has bandages and he's invisible underneath. So we should unravel the bandages. So that's kind of like how we came up with that. The only challenge for that was, because it is like on a peg, like it's not going to be 100% invisible. Like it still needs to peg onto the neck. So
Hmm.
we try to hide it by making it dark. And so, yeah, we like to have fun and try to like push the creativity as far as how to translate the characters into plastic form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when I first get, an action figure and I play around with it, either to just, play with it or take photographs of it, you try to kind of find, okay, how am I going to want to display this once I put it on the shelf and, you don't necessarily touch it every single day. But with this one, it's like, I think you guys pretty much just showed me how I want to design
Yeah,
one,
yeah,
because this is so effective as far as that goes. So it's really, really cool.
yeah.
And so Wolfman and Invisible Man are starting to roll out now, which is exciting. But another one that kind of joined the group alongside these guys is the actual Bela Lugosi inspired, I believe, stage version of Dracula figure
Yeah.
that is brand new, correct?
Yeah, so we had a generic Dracula in wave one,
Mm-hmm.
and then for wave two, I mean, he's a super popular character, and Lugosi is very iconic. So we actually, for this one, we worked with the Lugosi estate, and we're still kind of new, so we were trying to try different things. Like actor likeness is something that we wanted to like try out and see and get experience on that. So we kind of use that as like the inspiration to do a version like this. And because we already did a version before, we learned from and improved like the soft goods as well. So if you look at the original one, it kind of has like a flat fabric cape.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it works, I guess, for the price, but we wanted to elevate the look. So because of that, we were able to jump up and try to do like stitched fabric with wire in it. So so it came out like this. It's an improvement over the first Dracula. And in doing this, so in future figures we do where like there is soft goods, we have some experience here to apply that to future figures to have wire and fabric incorporated.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, he was on the Jada Next Level site. He's currently sold out. Will he be coming back or hitting any other retailers soon?
Yeah, so Next Level is a platform that we started during the pandemic to have an outlet where we could sell online direct to consumers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also a opportunity for us to release figures that might not fit in a main line or at retail.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just another avenue for us to try more premium things, whether it's premium packaging, more accessories and whatnot. So that's kind of like what Jada Next Level is.
Mm-hmm.
And then so on that site, we'll have like a select, we'll select some items that make sense on the site. We'll try to do some exclusives and first to market. So for Lugosi, he's a first to market. So we had some quantity there to sell.
Mm-hmm.
And then so people who buy it from there will have them first. And then there'll be a short period and then we'll open it up to more like specialty channels.
Okay.
So yeah, if you missed the first wave of figures on Next Level, it will be available again in more specialty outlets in the future.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm when like looking at the two, I'm trying to figure out, it's like I love both versions, but I assume that some or most of the pieces are swappable from one figure to the next in case there's like a color scheme or something that you want to kind of, customize yourself as far as they go, right?
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah.
So the hands, there's three sets of hands for Lugosi. So compared to the first one, the gestures are more specific to what Lugosi did because it's very like specific and iconic to him.
Yeah.
So you could swap those out. The heads, you can kind of make it work. So the first Dracula, the head didn't rotate as much as we wanted. So we improved the neck spacing so there's less gap and you could move his head around more.
Mm-hmm.
So it might work, but it might not be perfect. But it's because we're trying to improve the existing tool
Okay.
to function better. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Wolfman, Invisible Man, starting to ship now.
Yeah.
Lugosi will be coming to specialty shops soon, and then we'll just kind of see what's next and what the future may hold for Universal, correct?
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
for sure. Yeah.
Great. Well, then I'd like to now maybe switch gears a little bit, but not go too far, because I think I want to keep up the monster theme a little bit. But if you know anything about Robo and I, whenever we have discussions, it always ends up talking about food. And when you get
Yeah,
to combine food and action figures together, that's a match made in heaven for me. And you guys released the first General Mills cereal monsters in the form of Frankenberry and Count Chocula last year, and they actually, they made my best figures of the year list because I just love them so much. But when you released those, the next obvious question that everybody was asking was, hey, where's Booberry, right?
yeah, yeah.
And last week at LA Comic-Con, he made his debut. So I think a lot of people are really excited about having him join his two friends.
Yeah, yeah. So the food mascots is kind of like it hasn't really been done in action figures.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't something that we were planning to do. It just kind of happened. It kind of fell in our lap.
Yeah.
And after we had the first two come out, it kind of created like this unofficial like subline of figures, which is like food mascots, because like that's always been a thing, you know, especially like the older like times. It's like those designs are super like classic and simple.
Mm-hmm.
And it works for action figures because it's just cool to have those type of figures that you grew up with that you could pose around.
Yeah.
So the food mascots is something we're going to keep continuing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then for the cereal monsters, it's very niche. So when we did the first two, we weren't even sure like if it was going to work. So realistically, it's hard to commit to say that we're going to do the full 5 cast.
I was going to get to that.
Yeah, because like you said, like we have the first two at like trade shows in our own like showroom at conventions, and everyone asked the same thing: "Where's Booberry? Where's Booberry?"
Yeah.
So at the very minimum, we knew we had to come out with Booberry, so that at least completes the trio.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the other two, we're not going to say no, but we can't commit to say we're going to do it, you know? So
yeah. Now, is that going to kind of depend on how Blueberry does and maybe some of the other mascots to think about that? Because Fruit Brute, I think this year, just by coincidence or otherwise, he kind of had a re-emergence because they brought his cereal back on shelves this year. So I think it's definitely, as you said, kind of right there in people's brain, because it's cool to see what's new, but everybody always is going to ask what's next, right?
yeah. I mean, so we are going to continue food mascots. If there's like a gap or we don't have something ready, we could always fall back on it. Like, for example, like Chester being like the next one.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of other ones that we're interested in pursuing. So we'll see. It's hard to say now, but yeah, we'll see.
Okay. Well, I believe you mentioned that you actually had Booberry with you today that we were going to try to take a look at. And that's awesome because he's kind of a different figure from the other two, right? I think a lot of people seeing him in action figure form for the first time, they had that realization that they'd never noticed before, that he's significantly, smaller than Frankenberry and Count Chocula, but then his body type also maybe presents different challenges as far as articulating an action figure, right?
Yeah, because like the simpler something is actually harder to make it articulate.
Yeah.
So he is a super simple design, but it was actually kind of challenging to find the balance where we're not cutting him up too much. It still has enough playability where you can get him into different poses.
Yeah.
So I have him right here.
Awesome. So as the first thing that kind of struck me about it that I noticed is that, and we'll get into the articulation and stuff here in a second, but he goes from fully painted to kind of translucent in some places, like his fingertips, right?
So he's going to be glow in the dark.
Really?
Yeah. So the base body is like a injected, slightly translucent, milky, glow in the dark plastic. Yeah. And then the blue airbrush on top will be blue glow in the dark paint. So he'll have like a translucency. This is still an early prototype. We're still refining like the airbrush might be too heavy because in the photos of him you see more of a white border around the edges. We're gonna bring in the airbrush more, but yeah, so he's gonna have like a milky, translucent, ghost-like finish to him,
Yeah.
and he will be able to glow in the dark. Yeah. And then because he's floating, it comes with the stand, and like the base, we kind of make it look like a shadow.
Yeah.
So even though he's floating, you could still see like, because instead of just having a standard like circle base, we have to make a base anyways. So let's just make it a shadow to kind of like show the effect. It kind of looks more like he's floating. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, seeing him up close, I've got to say, I'm quite taken. He may be like the most accurate to the source material one yet. I'm excited to see that, and the fact that he glows just brings it up. Now on the base, does that put him kind of at the same height level with maybe Count Chocula or Frankenberry?
I'll show like some size comparisons real quick.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, because like in the show, it's kind of hard because the photos are kind of like in perspective, so you
Yeah.
can't tell like what's. So like, let me put him next to Count Chocula. I'll try to level it as much as possible. So like, he
Yeah.
kind of comes up to like the middle of his head,
Yeah.
and then with Frankenberry,
Who's even bigger?
yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah. So like even like the height, we're trying to figure out how high or low to put him to
Mm-hmm.
kind of look like he's in the same like space as them. Because if
Sure.
he's too low, it's they can't really interact with each other.
Right.
And the same if he's too high, it might look awkward. So we're trying to find the right height balance so they could like interact with each other.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and the thing about that is that, you know, you're right. The interaction is good because I would think that they would probably be looking slightly down
Yeah,
towards him at that. But you know, thinking about display spaces, you know, maybe some people want to kind of have him floating up slightly behind too. So I get that, how that's kind of a, you know, internal discussion. I'll be eager to see what you guys finally decide on. But for articulation, to me, it looks like he's got neck and shoulders and wrists too, right?
yeah. So the neck is kind of like on a ball joint. So like
Mm-hmm.
you could do the standard, you could like look up
Oh
and
yeah.
you could look down. So you could like kind of have him like, so you can have him looking up, or if he's like flying back, you can have him looking forward. And
Mm-hmm.
then his arms are on like the standard like hinge and rotation,
Yeah.
and also the standard hand and rotation. And then he's on a ball joint here.
Oh, cool. So you can get different angles and stuff.
Yeah, so if you want him to be like flying by, you'll be able to have him like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, yeah.
That's
So
great.
the ball joint gives it a lot of, it makes up for the lack of articulation in his body. So originally we were thinking about putting a cut here so we
Mm-hmm.
can rotate, but putting it on a ball joint, we felt it was good enough that you can get any like angle without breaking up too much.
Well, to that point, you know, I think his facial expression is probably the most expressive
Yeah,
of all
yeah,
of them. But then also just the way that you're posing him, you're bringing out a lot of expressiveness in the figure overall. So I think that effect with the stand having a ball joint on it is quite effective.
yeah. And then another challenge is because he is smaller,
Hmm.
um, it doesn't look right when you put him in the package because he's tiny. So
Yeah.
what we did is made a smaller cereal box package. So like even like when you go buy cereal, they have the standard cereal boxes, but they also have like the fun size ones, like the travel ones.
Yeah.
So we kind of like it kind of has that feel. So when you have all three boxes together, it kind of like has that look where it's like, oh, this is a standard cereal box, and this is like the mini ones where you could buy like packs of different flavors in. So it kind of worked out that way. Because like at first it's like, is it weird that he's smaller package wise? But at the same time, it's probably more weird that he's in a giant package, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of packaging, I know we've got the stand and we saw the cereal box as well. What else will be included with the figure?
Yeah, so another challenge we had with him, so food licenses typically are a bit more strict about small parts.
Hmm.
So like actually like his head is a small part using the super strict like food standards for
Hmm.
product. So we couldn't include an alternate head unless we scaled him up to where his head was big enough to pass the choke tube test.
Got you.
So that was like our options. Like, let's just make him bigger, and then he could swap heads. But it's gonna look strange next to the other characters because like
Yeah.
we want to like in general we want to scale our figures to each other.
Hmm.
So it's like let's just make them the right size, and we'll have a non-removable head because there's limitations. Obviously, like we would want more.
Sure.
Yeah, so we just went with the most iconic expression, which is on the actual cereal box. Yeah.
I was gonna say I think that probably for a very high percentage of collectors, they would choose that iconic expression, and having him actually in scale with the other figures
Yeah,
is
yeah.
more important. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like a small, simple figure, but there was actually a lot of challenges, which
Yeah.
is yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, he looks great with Frankenberry and Count Chocula. Can you share, timeline as far as where he's at the development
Yeah.
process, pre-orders, on shelf type of stuff?
Yeah. So he's kind of like a one-off, like he's not part of a wave.
Hmm.
And so what we're doing with like one-offs here and there is trying to align the timing to be with San Diego Comic-Con.
Oh,
So that's going to be like the touch point for us to have like several one-offs instead of just releasing it whenever it's ready. Like
yeah.
we're gonna have it align with San Diego. So the goal is to have them available to purchase at San Diego. Yeah.
Really? Well, I
Yeah.
will be there, and hopefully he'll be ready to go. Well, that's fantastic. I'm so glad that you guys have gone back to do Booberry, and I'm gonna keep like fingers and toes and eyes all crossed that they continue to do well, because I think the addition of Fruit Brute and Yummy Mummy would be fun as well. They've got some really cool designs. I get it; they're not quite as well known, but I probably won't stop pestering you about that for a while, but
Yeah.
I'll try not to be too bad as far as that goes.
Yeah.
But as far as the actual food mascots go,
Mhm.
you made allusion to him before, because you guys are not done as far as that goes, and I wanted to make sure that we touched on maybe who might be the next one as far as that goes, and that's Chester Cheetah, a very well known and I think very well liked mascot as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's super cool. He has like a lot of like personality. So when you put like articulation in it, you can put him in really like nuanced, cool poses to like kind
Hmm.
of shine, like his personality shines. So this is a more updated sample we had at LA.
Uh-huh.
So this is off the tool. Like
Oh,
this is like 90% done.
wow.
So we're still refining like the finishes on his body.
Hmm.
So like compared to the one at San Diego, we have the black whiskers now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he has a very like weird and unique body.
Uh-huh.
So like, sometimes like if the body is not standard like or the cereal monsters, it either hinders the articulation, but in his case, it like enhances his articulation.
Wow.
There's like no limitations because like there's nothing in the way of anything.
Yeah.
Like we have like movement here, like side to side.
Yeah,
And
that's
in
fantastic.
general, so like we take two different approaches to the figures we have.
Hmm.
So the one like lane is kind of like what we started with Universal Monsters, more human like, where we try to maximize like double like elbows and knees. Whereas for the food mascots in that style of figure, it's more simplistic. So we don't want to break up those parts too much.
Yeah.
For like this style figure, we go for single.
Hmm.
We try to maximize what we have. So like he has a single like elbow, but
Oh, wow. That gets well past 90.
yeah, and even like single, like you can basically have it go all the way up.
I was gonna say Robo will be happy he can kick his own
Yeah,
backside there.
yeah. So it's like the best of both worlds. Like the sculpt isn't broken up too much, so like his arm doesn't look too cut up,
Hmm.
but it doesn't hinder like the actual range.
No,
So
I think you guys balance that well. And one of the things that I'm noticing is that he has pretty large feet or sneakers in comparison to the rest of the body. So I just am positive those are really going to help give him a nice low center of balance to get some cool
yeah, for
poses
sure.
going.
Yeah, they're like comically large.
Yeah. Yeah, but you know that's part of his thing. Now, if you still have Count Chocula or Frankenberry there, can we see how he kind of
Yeah,
compares to them as far as size goes?
yeah, let me stand him up.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and then
Yeah. Yeah, because I've been kind of thinking that Count Chocula is kind of like the standard size guy, and you know Frankenberry is a little bit bigger. So I think Chester Cheetah fits in perfectly with that. Now at Comic Con, he had what I think were maybe alternate hands with some Cheeto dust fingers and an actual Cheeto itself. Are we still planning on seeing those as well?
yeah, so he has like two expressive hands and then two grippy hands. So
Hmm.
yeah, so I'll show this one. So he will have Cheeto dust on the
Awesome.
fingertips.
That's
Yeah.
perfect.
And then he does come with a Cheeto.
Awesome.
It's not a real Cheeto,
I was gonna
so
say you just don't want to
don't put
confuse
it in
that
your
if you're
mouth.
eating Cheetos with Chester Cheetah.
Yeah, so he'll be able to hold that. And then this is probably the coolest accessory right here. The mini
Oh, the
Cheeto.
bag of Cheetos. Awesome. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
So it's going to be fully printed and
Well,
it's
it's cool because you kind of started that with the cereal monsters and continue with him. It's
yeah,
like where these guys originate from. It's cool to have a action
the
figure
actual
size
product. Yeah.
facsimile of that.
Yeah. So for the food mascots, packaging wise, it's like a closed box with a fifth panel.
Hmm.
And like the artwork on it will replicate whether it's a cereal box or a bag of Cheetos. So for all food mascots, what we have in moving forward, we're going to go with that format, which is like a
Okay.
closed box, and you could flip it open and see the character, and then kind of replicate what food it is. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Now you said that he is about 90% there in terms of like, will he be available for pre-order at some point, or do you know, are you planning
Yeah.
him as a one-off as well around San Diego?
So all the like new figures we kind of showed off at San Diego.
Hmm.
So like this like the Capcom stuff.
Hmm.
We're very close. They're all tooled. Like this is from the tool.
Hmm.
Pre-orders for these will be like within the first quarter of 23,
Okay.
and they'll ship to people within like a 4 to 6 month window after that.
Okay. That's
Yes. Yeah.
that's actually refreshing. I know a lot of people have been saying, please let us pre-order,
Yeah.
but I think we've become so accustomed to pre-ordering like a year or more in advance for so
Yeah.
many things. It's kind of nice to be able to pre-order something and then get it within a few months. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you guys are making the right decision with that.
Yeah. And in general, like I think at San Diego, we mentioned like all those new figures were going to go up in December pre-order.
Hmm.
But like delays here and there takes longer to like refine and like make sure everything's dialed in.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not up for pre-order now, but a couple months from now at max is when the pre-orders will go up.
Okay.
So
Okay.
people will
And
still get it in their hands like within the first half of next year. Yeah.
That's that's perfect.
Yeah.
And it's exciting because like I said, I'm a sucker for like the food mascots and whatnot, but you also mentioned that you're going to continue that as a category. So I think it will be fun to speculate about what may or may not be next. Since LA Comic Con did just happen, and now that Toy Fair in New York has been moved to September and whatnot, what's kind of the next, reveal cycle for you guys as far as shows go? Does that default to something like WonderCon? Are we going to go more with San Diego?
Yeah, so for me personally, I think the big touch points would be like San Diego, New York Comic Con in LA.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the ideal like major touch points throughout the year.
Okay.
Then the goal to have new figures or licenses revealed at every show.
Mm-hmm.
And in between that, we'll like if we can reveal one-offs here and there. And then as far as like actual trade shows, I'm not too sure. This year was the first year since COVID that we actually went to like trade shows and conventions.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of like we're getting back into it, and then we're still trying to figure out what our schedule will be for next year. I mean, some things are already confirmed, like San Diego's confirmed.
Yeah.
Uh, we've never been to New York Comic Con as a company, so that's something that's on our radar. And if we can go, then I think that's also a good touch point to reveal and show product. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, exciting. I can't wait for Booberry and Chester and to see who's next. Going to keep fingers crossed for hopefully the rest of the serial mascots. So we've talked about a couple of things, and I'm going to, as we transition to the next thing, I'm going to apologize out in front because this is like the section of the conversation where I'm probably going to get real nerdy about things because I'm excited for all the stuff that we've talked about, but what is really, really, really exciting to me, and I probably made you sick and tired of hearing about it at San Diego, is of course the Capcom license, and within that specifically Mega Man.
Yeah.
This has been my most wanted action figure line for years. And so seeing them, this first series, especially with my favorite Mega Man 1 Robot Master there, this is a big deal. So I want to spend some time talking about this and start it off with kind of an update about how things are going as far as production goes with Series 1.
Yeah, so series one is the tooling's all done. We have some test shots.
Okay.
We're still refining. So there's some things we want to improve on the elbows and knees, and then like the fitment in the range. So like typically when you get a test shot, the joints are either too loose or too tight. So we have to make sure every joint is like adjusted so it's smooth and works well. So the tooling's done. We're starting to do paint masters. I mean, these are the paint masters, but these are prototypes, so they're like hand painted. So we're using these to apply to the tool on a production level. So we're very close. And again, like I mentioned before, these will also be available for pre-order within the first quarter of 23. And it'll be in people's hands like a couple months after that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's fantastic. Now, I know that this is a obviously kind of a press photo, and it shows the figures kind of, you know, in their hero poses and whatnot. As far as, you know, accessories and pack-ins and whatnot, how are we going with that? I still think we're showing alternate faces and whatnot at Comic-Con and hands and things like that, correct?
Yeah, so each figure will have two different heads. So there'll be more of like a neutral one, and then the alternate, we try to go more expressive, especially for this brand, because all the characters have like wacky personalities and looks. So we want to push the face expression on Mega Man line more so than maybe like other licenses we have.
Right.
And then they all have alternate hands where it makes sense. Like obviously Fireman doesn't have alternate hands.
Right.
So, but he has like the fire effects that are removable. You could swap them interchangeably between the hands.
Oh, cool.
For Mega Man, he has the blaster on, but if you pull it off, you can have two regular arms with hands, and the blaster is interchangeable on either side. So you can have them on the right or left. And then he has alternate hands, and then he has a fireball piece with a stand. Fireman, what you see here is like most of his accessories. He has an alternate head, and then he has a separate fire effect with a stand. So you can, so it's flames coming out of his like arms and head.
Yeah.
But you can also have him shooting a separate fire piece.
Awesome.
And then for Iceman, that's his standard head. And then he has another one where he's more angry and it looks like he's like blowing a shard of ice. and it'll come with a shard of ice with a stand, and then he also has alternate hands.
Yeah. Iceman was the and like maybe because I default to him anyway, but he was the one that I noticed at San Diego that, you know, the facial expressions that you guys were using were pretty much right out of like, you know, artwork and style guides and things like that that are very, you know, specific to, you know, his poses and whatnot. And I think you guys did a really, really nice job of capturing all of those expressions with these guys. Now they're fairly far along, which is great. I'm really, really excited to hear that. As far as like packaging reveals and things like that goes, will that be shown when it's time for pre-orders to open?
Yeah, most likely. So usually when pre-orders go up, whether it's like a retailer or someone, when they put pre-orders up, they're using photos that have been approved by the licensor.
Right.
So that means like, you know, standard shots, like pose shots and packaging, all is part of that approval like package that we send to the licensor. So yeah, packaging, like neutral poses, all the accessories, like the pack out, and even like cool like shots are all going to be part of that package. So those will be floating around when pre-orders are available. We actually have an update on pricing on these.
Okay.
So because they're smaller, when you put them in a standard size package, it looks kind of weird because they're like undersized and there's a lot of like open space.
Because
So
these are, I'm sorry, and I don't mean to interrupt you, because these are 6-inch scale action figures, not 6-inch tall action figures, right? Because the Mega Man guys are shorter.
Yeah, so they're around 4.5 inches tall. I think Iceman is like a little bit taller than 4 inches. So they're pretty small, but they're in scale with your other 6-inch lines.
Right.
So instead of putting it in a standard 6-inch like scale box, we scaled it down. So the packages are smaller, which means we got the price down smaller. So they're gonna go out at $20.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. $20 112 scale action figures are becoming kind of hard to find at this point. So that's really, really great to hear, because especially with all the swappable pieces and whatnot, I think that's getting into like the maximized value area there. So that's very cool.
And also, like, even though they are simplistic, we're making sure to load it up with as much detail as possible. So like the deco on it will be all there. So like, you know, like if you look at Iceman, like his backpack, it's completely painted.
Yeah.
Buckle, everything. So we're not gonna like cost reduce any deco on these just because like that's kind of what sets it apart from like maybe like a kid's toy to a collectible.
Yeah.
Because we are at the $20 price point, which is cheap for a collectible, but it seems expensive for a kid's toy. So we want to make sure we're positioned to be a collectible. So yeah, so all the detail will be painted, and then in wave 2 when we show it, I'll show like more updates on the painting and shading we have going on.
Okay. I'm like literally, that I think that's important with him, because one of his iconic poses, he kind of has his legs, just like that. You got it. I'm literally trying to reach through my screen right now, because he looks fantastic, and I'm gonna probably indulge myself a little bit here, because Iceman's my favorite robot master from Mega Man 1, and Fireman's kind of like his foil. But when it comes to, you know, there have been very few attempts at actually making a line of this property, which to me is crazy because it lends itself so well to action figures. I was surprised to see those two leading with Mega Man, who was the obvious choice for the anchor of the first line in the first wave. Do you guys have a process that you go through as far as deciding which characters are in which wave? Because I think that'll speak to a larger piece that we'll get to in a moment, but we're obviously starting with Mega Man 1, right?
Yeah. So it's different for Mega Man and Street Fighter. So what I say about Mega Man is not going to apply to Street Fighter.
We'll get to that then for sure.
Yeah. So basically, for me, like the versions, because there's so many iterations of Mega Man. So for me, like we want to go with like the classic, like from the 90s, like that era, and not too modern. So Mega Man 1 is a good place to start. I think the first couple games, there's some really awesome designs for Robot Masters.
Yeah.
So to start, it was like, let's just start at one and go in order. So that's why when you look at Wave 2, it's also two Robot Masters from one.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, I think we're gonna jump around
Okay.
because I'm aware of the characters, but like when working on these, like doing a deep dive on the actual character designs from the first couple games,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, that one's cool. He's not in one, but I want to do him because he's
Yeah.
cool. So we're gonna jump around a bit within Mega Man and not go game by game.
Okay.
So I mean, if you don't see like a character from one, it might not be the next wave, but it might be a future wave
Mm-hmm.
because but the newer waves will have more wacky characters. So yeah.
Well, that's awesome, and I'm just gonna throw Woodman out there as being very, very cool from Mega Man 2. I'll just do that right now. But that kind of led me to the next piece because Mega Man, I think, maybe unlike most of the other action figure properties that you're dealing with, there is definitely a compartment of that that is very, very that lends itself very well to sharing parts
Yeah,
between
for sure.
figures and figures, right? So I think we'll get to Series 2 here in just a second, but like logically, the characters that you selected for Series 2 make a lot of sense to me based off of what we saw in Series 1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the advantage of that is like the gap between wave one and wave two
Mm-hmm.
is going to be shorter. It's not going to be like wave two's coming out a year after wave one,
Mm-hmm.
because like a lot of the parts are already developed.
Yeah.
So the wait between the two will be shorter because we've already developed a lot of the characters already. Yeah.
That's music to my ears. And to that point, and we're not telegraphing anything at this point, but the other two robot masters from Mega Man 1, their body types and size even are very different from the first four
For
that you
sure.
kind of rolled out, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like in the long run, the line isn't going to be using the same base body across the board.
Right.
There's going to be unique shapes and sizes. So when you have a whole collection, it's more varied and not just like straight across the board.
Yeah. Well, you showed us Iceman. Do you have Mega Man and Fireman as well?
Yeah, it's the same prototypes from San Diego. I mean, we have
Oh, okay.
more updated test shots, but because they're not painted, they're like
Yeah.
random colors. So yeah, so here's Mega Man.
And that's the alternate
Yeah,
face from the one in the actual PR photo.
yeah. So, because they are action figures, you want to put them in poses where he's shooting a fireball.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure that there's a head that fits what he's doing. If he's
Yeah.
shooting a fireball, we want him to make him look like he's like in an action pose. Yeah.
Or if you're talking to someone like me, you're making sure that you're going to sell like 3 or 4 of them to
Yeah.
pay for each
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah. And then show you Fireman too. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he has a weird anatomy because like when you take the flames off, he just has like these big like stubs on his
yeah, he doesn't have
but
hands.
yeah, but that's what he looks like. So
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I know these are the same. You mentioned that these are the same ones that were at San Diego, but one of the things that I was taken with when I saw them was the translucency and the effect of like the flames on him.
yeah,
Is that carried close to through
yeah.
production, looking the same? Yeah.
Yeah, so for Iceman, the ice shard will be like a translucent blue with like white airbrushing on it to look like it's like ice becoming like snow or
Mhm.
something.
Yeah.
And the fireball for Mega Man will have like a translucent yellow to it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Well, pre-orders for those guys coming soon, and
Yeah.
hopefully, as you said, between within a few months
Yeah.
to be released. So I can't wait. But at LA Comic Con, we kind of got into the next series already as far as that goes, and I'd like to show off the photos that you sent over to us, and then maybe we can jump back so you can show us. But series 2 features Cutman, Elecman, as well as Hyper Bomb Mega Man in green. And to be honest, like I said, I think Cut Man and Elect Man were very intuitive
Yeah,
as inclusions in this set. And then I really like that you went with Hyper Bomb Mega Man, not only because I think the green is very striking, but it represents a character in a way that's not in the line yet, right?
yeah. Yeah,
So,
so these so I was talking about like detailing.
mhm.
So if you look at these are also prototypes, but if you look at like the base orange color, we're putting airbrush on top to give it like depth and shading to it.
You can really see that in the shins here,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even like on the top of his head, like it's
Hmm.
like a highlight. So what we're gonna have like shading and deco detail on all these to make them look more premium. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And there's Hyperbomb Mega Man, and we'll see better in a moment. But his face, at least this first one, is even different from the two that are with the initial Mega Man, right?
Yeah. So because like, the nature of the property, there is a lot of reuse,
Hmm.
but where we can add more new tooling, we will. So yeah, he is just a repaint of Mega Man, but he's going to come with a new head sculpt. Like he's going to come with new accessories. So we're going to make sure that the reuse doesn't feel like a reuse because you
Sure.
have like new expressions and new accessories to make it feel fresh.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, to your point, Hyperbomb Mega Man is a green repaint of Mega Man, and there are other variations of Mega Man that maybe are a little bit more involved than just a repaint. But I'm one of those people who, I've got to be honest with you, I want Mega Man in every color of the rainbow simply
Yeah.
because that's how he was represented in the games. And to me, this is you get so much out of this because it's specifically Hyper Bomb Mega Man. But if you move on to like Mega Man 2 or whatnot, this is also Leaf Shield
Yeah.
Mega Man. So he doesn't just live within the specific, release that he is, right?
Yeah. And also, because they're not released yet, we don't know. Like, I mean, obviously, Mega Man is going to be the most popular bestseller, the
Hmm.
blue version. We don't know like the range of the Robot Masters, how they do in comparison to Mega Man.
Hmm.
So that's why, like, the first couple waves were including an iteration of Mega Man to be kind of like the anchor.
Sure.
But if we find that the Robot Masters are performing way better because they're unique or they're cool, we can also shift more towards that. So we're still early, but as
Mhm.
far as like character selection, for now, we kind of want to incorporate a version of Mega Man in each wave,
Yeah.
see where it goes from there.
I think that's completely understandable, and I'm gonna switch over to you here in just a second, so you can show probably everybody what they're really wanting to see. But I've got to tell you, I love the facial expressions on the first wave of figures, but the first thing that got me about Cutman and Electman at the LA Comic Con booth was just how expressive these
Yeah,
two are. And they're expressive not only in a way that's dynamic, but they're extremely expressive in a way that reflects their characterization. So I think you guys did a really nice job with that.
yeah. So like, yeah, like their personalities are very wacky. So we want to like maximize like that feel for each of the characters. In the photos of those two are the alternate heads.
Uh-huh.
The main head, the eyes will be more looking forward. So if you want to have him in a neutral pose on your shelf, he'll have more of like a standard look.
Yeah.
Um, I don't have those. I have like toys everywhere and like parts and pieces everywhere. So I
That's
don't know
good to
what it
have.
is. Yeah, but the neutral head on Cutman's kind of cool. So he kind of has like a angry look. He's kind
Yeah.
of like
Kind of
pouty.
kind of pouting
Yeah,
look.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then in Elect Man, he kind of has like a cool guy like attitude. So he's looking forward and his mouth is kind of like angled, like he's just like looking at you. Um,
Well, you mentioned the characters themselves, and here's where I'm going to start to get real nerdy is that, Cutman was like the robot master that was the first robot master, or the first one after Mega Man and role that was created by Dr. Light. And he always kind of looked at Mega Man as like a big brother. So he's kind of got an orneriness to him. And I think you guys got that really well. And then with Elect Man, he's kind of he's kind of full of himself and whatnot.
Yeah.
So cocky, and you got that here too. And I can picture, I know you said you don't have it, but I can picture the exact expression that you are talking about as far
Yeah,
as the alternate cut man head goes. So
yeah.
that's great.
It's really funny. Like his other head sculpt is really funny. And then like these are prototypes. So like Cutman, when we did the teaser, we
Uh-huh.
teased it showing the blades,
Yeah.
But if you look, the blades are like very square,
Yeah.
but we adjusted it so the edges of the blade is comes to a point because
Okay.
it's not like a blunt like flat side.
Yeah.
Uh, these will be articulated, and then
Perfect.
you could pop it off, and you could put
Removable
it on a stand, so you could be shooting out the blade,
with
and then
the hands that are kind of
yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
then yeah, even like the detail on him is pretty cool. Like on the back, he has like little rivets on the back of the head, and he
Yeah.
has like, these little vents on the back.
Yeah, he's kind of got that form of Mega Man. I've got to say, probably of all the Robot Masters, even though that really none of them have had a really fair shake as far as action figures go, Cutman's probably the one that's been the best represented. And
Yeah,
I got
yeah,
to tell you,
yeah.
I'm comparing him to what I can actually see in limited quantities on my own shelf. He's looking awfully good already, man.
Yeah, and here's a Lek man. I can't find his hand. It's like
Okay.
floating around somewhere. So he's looking at you. He could be
Yeah.
pointing at you.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and also him like where it makes sense to add detail and deco, we will.
Yeah.
It's funny because like all the details on the backs of all these Mega Man figures.
Well, that's what I said. I mean, it's like you're gonna get me for alternate heads, but also posing some of them from the back, so you can, because like you mentioned, the backpack on Iceman is really cool, and then the paneling on those two guys is really fun as well. So that's cool.
Yeah, and it's cool because the designs are simple, very like expressive and like colorful.
Hmm.
So when you have them all like together, it's just like all these like really cool, colorful like figures all together.
Oh, that's
So
great.
yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So, and you the range of colors that you're dealing with in just the first two series, especially with the choice of Mega Man in the Hyperbomb outfit, is very vibrant as well. So, excuse me, that's great. And are these guys just kind of starting out as far as the production cycle goes, or where are you with these guys?
yeah. So wave two, it's already in tooling. I
Wow.
mean, so the new parts. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like he's using mostly Mega Man's body. Like
Right.
Electman is using Mega Man's body, but he has Fireman's like lower legs because he has like the knee pads,
Mm-hmm.
and then all the new parts and pieces are in tooling right now.
Yeah.
So, and then like as far as like, I'll just quickly show you like one point. So these will be single jointed, so it doesn't break up the sculpt too much,
Mm-hmm.
but the range will be like pretty good.
That's really great.
Yeah.
I love the slanting angle of the end of the biceps piece to be able to help facilitate that.
Yeah. So we're like striking a balance between the not breaking up the look too much, but also maximizing how much range you can get.
Yeah,
These are just prototypes. I mean, there's like pins all over them, but
sure.
these and Street Fighter will both be completely pinless.
Wow.
So it
Oh,
also
pinless
play
on
into
them.
like the premiumness of them. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. That's so exciting. And so you kind of talked about, will then, without tipping your hat, then maybe with series three, we're probably looking at hopefully maybe hearing something about that around Comic-Con time. Is that when you may start jumping around a little bit as far as character selection?
Yeah. Yeah. So Wave 3 will be revealed at Comic-Con.
Okay.
We might have like teasers prior, like leading up to it.
Hmm.
So yeah, as far as like character selection, I mean, if you're going by the pattern we've had so far, it's kind of obvious what the next two would be.
Uh-huh.
But the wave three will be completely unexpected. So
Really?
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, one nerdy rabbit hole with this that I kind of want to go down is that I want to see every single robot master from every single game,
Yeah, yeah,
which is a lot, and it's good to hear that. One unique thing about Mega Man 1 though is that it only has 6 robot masters compared to 8 in all the other games, because the developers essentially ran out of time when they were making
yeah.
the game, right? They couldn't get the other ones done, but retroactively they brought in 2 characters, Oil Man and Time Man, that got some play in Mega Man Powered Up, which was kind of like a refresh of the original Mega Man game, and they've definitely had some time to shine in the comics and some other places. I think about those 2 characters simply because it's a niche and kind of bookend to that original game that probably isn't quite as well known as Mega Man 2 and whatnot. But I've thought about those guys and how they have fairly, similar body designs to some of the other ones. Would something like that be a possibility as far as like maybe convention exclusives or next level type of thing? Because I get it, there may not be as well known, but they're there, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it all depends. We're gonna see in the first half of next year how these do.
Yeah.
If the appetite for Mega Man figures is really good, we're gonna obviously continue it. And yeah, if it makes sense to do crazy, more like obscure things, yeah, we'll see. It's hard to predict how these are gonna do.
Yeah.
If they do well, then all those doors open up. And like, even if you look at our Street Fighter line, we're not afraid to do obscure characters.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's all on the table. We're not gonna just cherry pick main characters and like move on to the next. So yeah.
Okay. Well, to that point, then, if hopefully we do get to there, some of the supporting cast that aren't necessarily, robot masters, like Doctors Wily, Light, Cossack, Roll, Rush, all of these other guys. There's all kinds of different supporting characters. I assume that those are on the table if things go well, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Okay. 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 Well, needless to say, I'm excited about Mega Man, and I could talk about it for the next probably 4 days until everybody was completely, over it at that point. But I'll be excited to get the pre-order in and hopefully see them very soon. And I'm looking forward to, the next reveals, obviously. But the other Capcom brand that you guys have introduced is, of course, the beloved Street Fighter. And you've shared some new photographs, or a new photograph of Series 1 with us. And that, of course, consists of Chun-Li, Ryu, and Fei Long. Are they kind of at the same spot as like Mega Man is in terms of production, where they're at? And you said pre-orders will probably be at the same time?
Yeah, so these are also tooled. We're very close to submitting pre-production, which is like only one step between that and actual shipping out. I would say that Wave 1 Street Fighter realistically will be the first to get into people's hands, even
Okay.
though the pre-order window for all of them are relatively within the same time frame. Street Fighter, we're gonna have some really big news to share. I won't go into detail now,
Okay.
but next year you're most likely gonna be able to see these at retail.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And when you say retail, you mean like larger retail,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
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 Yeah. Okay, great. Well, as far as the pack-in pieces, accessory swappable parts, I think we were talking about different hands, different heads for each two. Is all of that still moving forward as well?
Yep, yep, yep. So it'll have 2 heads. It'll have one head that will complement if you're doing like fighting poses or attacking poses. And then the standard head will be based on the character portrait from the select screen. So
Awesome.
that's like the direction for that. So, eventually if we do them all, you could recreate the character select using our figure face portraits. And then, yeah, they'll all have 2 sets of hands and an effect piece. So Chun-Li will have an effect piece that attaches to her leg.
Yep.
So it looks like she's doing the crazy kicks. And then the fireball, obviously. What's cool about the fireball is he's gonna have his hands sculpted inside because like in the game, like when he shoots a fireball, there's an impression of his hands that carries into the effect.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's gonna have that,
Oh,
and then
that's cool.
yeah. And then Fei Long will have a fire piece that attaches to his whole leg. And
Yeah,
all the effect pieces will be like that translucent with airbrush shading effect to all of them.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, great. That's wonderful. Well, also I'm excited. Obviously, we've talked about timelines, and I'm in for this. Street Fighter's a little bit different than Mega Man in that there have been a couple of solid attempts to really get comprehensive lines out there. I don't think any of them have ever done it, and we'll
Yeah.
talk about that here in a minute. But I know a lot of people are excited about these, not only for how they look, but also for the scale that they're at. I mean, these are truly 1/12 scale action figures to fit in with what, at least around Fwoosh and the places that I inhabit in the community goes. It's that 1/12 scale, which is really important
Yeah.
to people.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, excuse me. Also, like Mega Man, we got a chance to see a preview of Series 2 for Street Fighter at LA Comic Con, and it is led by Ken, which I think was pretty intuitive for a character who is going to be in Series 2, but also Dalsim and M Bison, and I got to say again, this makes for a pretty solid wave, and I think it follows the footprint that you guys started with Series 1. I think all of these guys are probably a little bit better known than Fei Long is, but Dalsim kind of inhabits that, not quite on the level of popularity as like Ken and maybe M Bison, right?
Yeah. So the wild card for each wave will either be a completely obscure character
Mm-hmm.
or a character that may not be obscure but rarely gets figures made of.
Right.
So I mean, the last time we saw Dalston was like in the soda line, maybe like more than 15 years ago.
And
So
and I got to say, I have that figure, and he's in many pieces because he did
yeah,
not hold
yeah,
up very well.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like our format. Yeah, so for like Ken, he is reuse, but obviously he has a new head sculpt. But we
Yeah.
also have a new key, so it's not tattered, and
Mm-hmm.
we retooled the lower leg, so it's also not tattered.
Right.
So even though it is reuse, we try to incorporate as much newness where it's necessary, basically.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure. And
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 then
and I and I appreciate lines that you have a library of parts,
yeah,
right? And reuse,
yeah,
because it facilitates, going new where you need to go new, and it makes
yeah,
those pieces better and using what already exists for the things that they, functionally satisfy, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And then yeah, two head sculpts. The one I have on him is the standard one, which is
Mm-hmm.
also similar to the character portrait on the select screen.
Yeah, I can see the profile of it. Just like, yep.
Yeah, and then like the hair will have like a wash to it.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah,
Very
and
nice.
he'll also have a fireball. And then so that's like the least exciting as far as newness goes in the wave. And
Mm-hmm.
then we have M Bison. So he's the Street Fighter 2 version. So he doesn't like tower over like a
Right.
standard figure, and he's not overly like bulky.
Sure.
So we try to find a balance. So if you look at like the sprite of him in game, it's very similar proportion wise.
Mm-hmm.
And then the head you have on now is also from the select screen. So if you look at the select screen, he's the only portrait that's not like a 3/4 view, but it's just head on
Yeah.
for some reason. So that's what this one is.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and then for his accessories, he'll have a attachment like a Psycho power that attaches to his fist. So it's like a translucent purple like motion effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like when you're punching, it looks like this like effect is like flowing with his fist.
Cool.
And his other accessory will be a fabric wired cape.
Oh, so
So
so I was gonna ask, the cape is removable and it is wired, correct? Yeah.
yeah, so
Because in game in Street Fighter 2 especially, he kicks that cape, or he pulls the cape off right as he's starting to
yeah,
fight,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, like most people know him for having like the cape attached to his shoulder piece,
Mm-hmm.
but that's only like more modern iterations.
Yeah.
So when we submitted that, licensor was like, technically he doesn't have that in Street Fighter 2,
Hmm.
but if you want to include it just as an add-in, go ahead. So but like in game, once he tears the cloak off him,
Yeah.
he's completely capeless. So in order to do the cape, we didn't want to just plug it in because he'll have peg holes here and it's not
Right.
supposed to. So the shoulder pieces will like snap off, like yeah,
Oh.
both of these will snap off, and then there'll be a second set of shoulder pads that have the cape attached to it that snap onto it, so it's interchangeable that way.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So like if you don't want the cape, it's seamless. It's not gonna have a peg hole or
That's
anything.
that's perfect because for me, I kind of default to that Street Fighter 2 look for most of the characters. And as you said, it's probably I mean the cape looks cool. So I'll probably have to make a decision, but like my mind defaults to him without a cape, right?
Yeah, yeah. So we have both options. So
Yeah.
like you can have with or without, or you could buy two and display both.
There you're
Yeah.
getting me again,
Yeah.
man.
And then the cape, the story on the cape also, going back to monsters,
Hmm.
is the first Dracula we came out with. It was kind of like a flatter cape. We try to improve that for the Go See. We did a wired cape with stitching on it.
Hmm.
So because doing that, we got to a point where we're more confident to incorporate that into like newer figures. So Bison being an example. So it will be wired, so you could have it like draped down. You could have it flowing however you want. So we
Oh,
have that.
that's great. That's
Yeah.
great. And then Dalsim, he's definitely probably the most interesting, or people have the most questions about, his swappable pieces and whatnot, just simply because of his
Yeah.
powers alone, right?
Yeah. So here he is.
And that's kind of his that's the alternate head, right?
Yeah, this is the alternate head. I was trying to look for his other one. I can't find it,
Oh,
but
he,
it's just
he,
going to be the more stoic look with the
yeah.
closed mouth.
He's an odd design because he is so intensely skinny, but at the same time completely jacked, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we wanted to capture that, and then as
Uh-huh.
far as details goes, like even like the earrings will be separate pieces. It won't be just like sculpted like and filled in, and then even like the bracelets will be separate pieces.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so for him, when we were starting the development, it's like, yeah, his alternate face will be his yoga fire face, and then it'll come with a flame effect. But then it's like he also has very unique power set, and that's something we need to incorporate into the figure.
Hmm.
So we have an extended arm come with him, but it's like it's weird to just have one. We need
Yeah.
two, but it's weird that he doesn't have extendable legs. So it went from doing a fireball to cost reducing that out and going all in on his extendable limb ability, because
Wow.
it's very unique to him, and it's also unique to like action figures, because fireballs and action figures is pretty common.
Yeah.
Whereas here we have an opportunity to offer something really unique. So so this is the standard version.
Hmm.
So you'll have two extended arms that connect at the bicep cut, so the arms will come off. These are prototypes. It's missing the bracelets, but he'll have the bracelets,
Uh-huh.
and these are bendy
Oh,
wire.
they are bendy. Oh, that's fantastic.
So he has two extended arms,
Hmm.
and then he has two extended legs that
Wow.
attach to his thigh cut.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you want to get super wild and attach all four extensions, then he's gonna look really crazy. Like, I can't do it because one of the
Sure.
legs is stuck, but I'll just show one side so you could see a comparison between what
Well,
he looks like normal and
and
stretched out.
and the legs, I don't think the legs ever been done, right? I don't think there's ever been
No,
stretchy legs on a doll seam figure.
so
Wow.
you yeah, and then
That's cool.
yeah, yeah. So he's gonna have a very unique and fun construction and
Yeah.
features.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And maybe Yoga Flame and stuff like that would be like a player two or an alternate color
Yeah,
possibility in the future, right?
yeah, because like the figures still have a lot of untapped aspects to it. Like every character has a victory pose phase.
Hmm.
Every character has a defeat phase.
Yeah.
Like some power sets is more than just one. Like, like some characters have two effects and not just one. So in the future, when we do like player two or other deluxe versions, we can incorporate that. So just because he doesn't have a yoga fire in this version doesn't mean you're not going to get it in the future.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I follow your logic of
Mhm.
making the choice though,
Yeah.
because I've got to be honest with you. When you said that, I started thinking about my accessory bin inventory, and I
Yeah.
probably got more fireballs than I can count. But
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had stretchy doll seam legs before, so that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. And what's cool is we're able to incorporate all these features like the bendy wire limbs, the wired cape on Bison. So wave one, wave two, all six figures will retail for $25 each.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that's still a really solid price point, especially after what this past year has taught us in terms of
Yeah.
things going up. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So
And wave two is in tooling now also.
mhm. Okay.
So, I mean, the goal is to have it in people's hands before the end of the next year.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. So we're really looking at for both Mega Man and Street Fighter to hopefully get two waves of each out next year in 2023,
Mhm.
correct?
Yeah, and then for both at San Diego, we will reveal wave three for both,
Okay.
and then maybe reveal wave four at either New York or LA at the end of the year or something like that.
Wow. Okay, well that's exciting. And I can't wait. I'm the type, unfortunately, that I'm like stuff just can't come quickly enough for the stuff that I'm really into. But we talked about Mega Man games and how that classic series is really like a Mega Man, there's like 11 or 12 of them or something at this point. But Street Fighter is also very diverse in terms of like different games because it goes from Street Fighter up to Street Fighter 5 and whatnot. You guys, at least in the first couple of waves, kind of fall into that Super Street Fighter 2 kind of time frame. Is that a focus of yours? Are you like wanting to kind of work like Mega Man logically through that, or will there be some jumping around as well?
Yeah, so for Street Fighter, we're pretty firm on completing the Street Fighter 2 roster,
Mm-hmm.
which is, the original characters,
The
and then
original 8 plus 4 and
yeah, plus the bosses, and then
yep.
plus the new challengers like Fei
Okay.
Long,
So that's
DK.
16, that
Yeah, yeah.
16 group.
And
Yeah.
then that would probably include like Akuma and whatnot. Yeah, so it's in the 16 and 17 figure range.
Mm-hmm.
So for Street Fighter, I mean, that's always been my goal too, because it's never been done before.
Yeah.
It's so that's going to be the focus for the next year and a half is to get those 17 figures out first before jumping around to other games.
Well,
Yeah.
well, I'll circle back to that, but I don't generally on things like this go into it. Hey, when is specific character going to happen, or this and that. But one name that has kind of been a thorn in the side of collectors for over 20 years now is DJ. Has never had that action figure. And I'm not saying, hey, June, can you tell us exactly when he's coming out or if you're even considering him right now? But you got to know he's one that people are talking about already,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so when it comes to like, are you doing this and that from Street Fighter 2? The answer is yes, because our
Excellent.
plan is to make all of them. So
Excellent.
that's all I'll
Excellent.
say for now. Yeah.
Well, okay. Then, I think it's fair though that we can kind of get hypothetical and academic at it about it too, because if the focus is Super Street Fighter 2 roster plus maybe one or two others there, I think that's the smart, way to go. And I'm kind of with you. That's the roster that I would want to complete first. But do you have other games and characters available to you as well as far as the actual license goes?
Yeah, so for Capcom, we
Mm-hmm.
have the rights to Mega Man and Street Fighter,
Okay.
but those are like big umbrellas, you know, like
Right.
Street Fighter is a huge umbrella, and underneath there's different games, like different versions of all the characters. So it's up to us to pitch like from the concept stage what we want to do, and then they could review it and be like yes or no.
Hmm.
But it's not limited to, oh, you could only show us characters from Street Fighter 2. Like technically, if we showed like, you know, Street Fighter 5 concepts, you know, it's still on the table. Like
Yeah.
whether they approve it or not is up to them, but there's no limitations within that umbrella of what we want to pitch.
Okay. Now I think characters from most of the games have been represented, prior, before, but one game that has never really had that though. Does that include the original Street Fighter as well, with characters like Geki
Uh,
and whatnot?
Probably. I mean, honestly, like that super, super like going deep down.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know, honestly. Like it never even crossed my mind. I mean, I've like thought about it, but it's like, man, that's like way too crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I know I was getting into kind of inside baseball with Mega Man with the two masters, and Street Fighter 1 is kind of the same way, but it's like the people who are real fans of it, that's kind of like, man, that's a unicorn type of thing that's never happened. So
Yeah,
I understand, and the
yeah,
focus is where it is, but hopefully we may be able to have one of these conversations in the future where that's a real topic
yeah, yeah,
discussion.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, wow. Um, this is exciting. And like I said, I've been wanting to have you on when the timing worked out, and I think it worked out great to wait until after LA Comic Con to
Yeah.
do that. But we've talked about a lot of stuff, but I'm
Mhm.
sure, as usual, there are things that I miss to ask, or it doesn't come up in terms of the natural flow of conversation. Is there anything else that you want to make sure that we kind of talk about or put out there while we're here today?
I mean, I think we basically covered all of the reveals we've had in the past year.
Hmm.
Um, and kind of like the timing of when to expect pre-orders and when to expect to get them in your hands. For next year, it will hopefully also be a big year. So we have the touch points at like the major conventions to have reveals. In between, we will also have some one-off reveals here and there. So like in general, the normal waves we have, you know, we try to get into retail. They'll be available at like your online retailers also, like Big Bad Entertainment Earth.
Hmm.
And like if it's one-offs or deluxes that we show, we'll probably use our next level platform to like promote and have it available. So that's like another avenue for us to release a figure that's not, it doesn't make sense or doesn't fit into our main line. So
Okay.
it gives us more options. So that's another thing to look out for. Next
Mm.
year on next level, you're going to see a couple of crazy one-offs. So stay tuned for that. Yeah.
Oh, you've got me really thinking about that now, because my mind can go wild in terms of,
Yeah.
thinking what that might be. So that's exciting. I really think it's smart to use an avenue that you have created for that type of thing, because I get it. You get into properties like this, there are things that a lot of people are going to want, but then there are things that are more niche, and it's like
Yeah.
the diehard people really, really want it, but it's maybe not be quite as accessible in a retail setting, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have that going for us.
Mhm.
So we have a couple awesome items that's going to be on there. And then for Capcom, we're going to have, you know, wave 3 and 4 planned to show and reveal next year.
Yeah.
San Diego and maybe like New York or LA being the touch points. And, you know, we've been working pretty hard behind the scenes as far as expanding to new licenses and whatnot.
Really?
Uh, it's too early to say anything like specific, but also expect to see some new licenses shown next year. Yeah.
That's that's fantastic. I know that when we talked at Comic Con, you are a small but mighty team. So
Yeah.
I'm positive that you are being kept very busy as far as that goes. But I would assume the potential is still there, that if the action figure category does, perform well for you guys, that then, more opportunities will continue to present themselves, not only
Mhm.
as far as like licenses go, but how you be able to tackle things in a time in your time frames, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So the goal is to have a big year next year.
Yeah.
So yeah, keep an eye out. You could follow us on our Jada socials. If you sign up to the next level, then you get like an email newsletter every once in a while,
Yeah.
like showing new stuff. And then come check us out at all the conventions. We'll be sure to do this at every show to build excitement and show like how we're expanding our portfolio.
Yeah. Well, you've definitely you're doing the right things, I have to say. And I'm excited for not only the properties, but just what like Universal Monsters has proven that you guys are doing. And I have to say that I believe you are doing an excellent job and you're making the right decisions as far as the approach goes. So I hope nothing but success with this. And it's exciting. And I know this is the first time that you have been on, but I hope it's just the first time, and that we'll get to circle back and come back together maybe when we get first releases or something like that, or have some more news to show, because I really appreciate you being on with us today, June. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. We are still new and unknown, so having like these channels and platforms to help like spread the word and awareness for our stuff is very much appreciated.
Well, we love cool toys around here, so that's what you guys are working on. So we're glad to have it. So again, thank you very much. As June mentioned, you can catch Jada on all of the social platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, as well as the Jada Next Level site. Be sure to sign up for that newsletter because it does talk about some of the exclusive and first to market pieces on that that are available. But thanks to everyone for tuning in for this latest edition of the FwooshCast. We will hopefully be back again soon. But until that time, again, thank you, and we'll catch you on the Fwoosh. Bye, everyone.
Bye.